This is the Chatterbait How-To for Beginners, Part 3. Hey, if you're brand new to fishing, or just getting back to it after a long time away from the water, or just looking for some tips, tricks, how-tos, reviews, tackle unboxing and unbaggings, and lots of bass fishing, welcome to Fishing with Gramps, presented by American Legacy Fishing Company, right here on YouTube. In Part 1, we covered the basics, introducing you to the Chatterbait, the Chatterbait Elite, and the Z-Man Jackhammer. We also talked about rods, reels, the line I use, and how we fish the chatterbait. In Part 2, we went a little deeper. We talked about colors of chatterbaits, we talked about trailers we use on chatterbaits, and then we talked about the weather conditions when we might choose to build certain chatterbait combos to give you the best chance to catch a largemouth bass. Now here in Part 3, we're going to talk about some specialized chatterbaits. The first one we're going to jump into is the one I recommend most for bank anglers because it's built to be a little more snag proof than a regular chatterbait. Anybody who's fished chatterbaits a lot, you throw them things anywhere near wood, more than likely you're going to get hung up. So what Z-Man did was they took what I think was the Chatterbait Elite and they added some little weed guards to it and some goofy little eyes that look like somebody I know. Now having the weed guard on there gives you a little better opportunity to come through brush and not get hung up as much. As you can see here, I've got a Berkley Chicker Crawl in here, so I'm using these as craws. Now one of the things I also do to decrease my chances of getting stuck when I throw this around wood and brush piles is I will match it up with a trailer like this one, which is the Strike King Rage Bug. And the reason why I like this flat bottom is if it's coming over a limb or a brush, that flat will keep it from tipping over and getting the hook caught in the limb. It helps it come over the top. So you've got the weed guard protecting the top of the hook, and then if you use something flat like the Strike King Rage Bug, it helps it come through the cover just a little better. Now let me back up a little bit. In this video, I'm going to show all these CrosseyeZ using crawl trailers because I mostly throw these where I would normally throw a jig. Now for all you bank anglers, you can get these in bluegill color or the white for shad color and use all the trailers that I used in Part 2. Me, I normally only throw these like I would throw it in a place where I would throw a jig, so I'm using all crawl trailers in this video. But be sure to watch Part 2 if you're a bank angler to see the bluegill and the shad patterns when we're trying to imitate those bait fish versus a crawl. Now after the Strike King Rage Bugs, I also love throwing the Berkley Chicker Crawl. I've got these in black and blue and green pumpkin. Another one of the trailers I really like to use with these is the X-Zone Adrenaline Crawl. I've got these in the green pumpkin and black and blue colors. Work really well with this. And another favorite by a lot of people are just, you know, regular Rage Crawls, Kraken Crawls from Guggen Squad, something like that. Now when I'm throwing these, I'm not using my normal chatterbait rod. I'm using one of my jig rods because I'm basically pitching it around cover. So all of these CrosseyeZ chatterbaits, I basically throw them where I throw a jig. The next one after the CrosseyeZ is one of my favorite ones, especially in the fall. And that is the Z-Man Stealth Blade. This is one of my favorites in the fall. What I like to pair it up with are tiny little swim baits like this Divine swim bait that's 3.2 inches long. I will also fish it with this Rage Menace tail rigged vertically so I get two little flappers going by. These are mimicking those shad that spawned a few months ago. That's why the smaller profile. And after the fish have seen chatterbaits all summer long, the Stealth Blade is a little sleeper. Now another little trailer I really like to use on these, the Z-Man Trick Shots Drop Shot Bait. Again, makes for a nice tiny little bait fish. And a lot of times I will trim these skirts up to run just behind the hook so the profile isn't quite this big. You get the idea. That little paddle tail going crazy. Now the Stealth Blade actually serves a few different purposes for me too, because like I mentioned before, sometimes, especially on lakes that just are under a ton of fishing pressure from tournaments, from weekend anglers, everybody else, everybody's throwing a chatterbait these days. But not everybody likes or even knows about these little Stealth Blades with their little bitty polycarbonate blade. It throws out a different sound. Yep, I also throw it in black and blue. This one has a little 10,000 fish Yodo worm on it. Again, just giving something a little different that they might not have seen before. Same thing for stained water, different sound, something to target on. that may not be that heavier blade. You just never know. Now, a couple that I don't really mess with a whole lot that I've started to this year, because I actually got one from Mr. Bass in a box, is the Z-Man Project Z Chatterbait. Now, I guess the story behind this one goes, the pros wanted something with a more realistic head than even the jackhammer had. So as you can see, the head on this one is a little more, I don't know, fish-like, elongated. And this one's actually got a weed guard. I trimmed a bunch of the weed guard off down here so that it's very soft. But this one's actually supposed to be meant for coming through grass as well. But this is supposed to be one of the more realistic chatterbaits, if you will. This is the Project Z, I think they called it. And I think these come in around $9 or $10. But you can get them with weed guards and without. But for me, where I throw these is where I would throw a swim bait in open water. Now, if I'm fishing in heavy grass or in an area that's thick with that algae, nasty, yucky stuff, I'll use a regular swim jig head. But if I'm throwing in more open water and I think it's more of a swim jig bite, that's where I throw these two at. How many of you know what this is? No, that's not the new Z-Man Big Blade Chatterbait. This is something that I got from a local who makes his own baits, pours his own lead heads, and, you know, had made his own connection point to a jig. And I got this last year, which is kind of funny because if I compare it to what Z-Man just came out with next to this other homemade piece of chattering goodness, I'll just set that off to the side. So the last chatterbaits we're going to talk about are the new Big Blade Chatterbaits. And these were all designed by Brian Thrift, the guy who basically invented the chatterbait. These were his, you know, latest offering. They're in all the same colors that you would expect. And I really like this because of this head design. To me, this is like the Chatterbait Elite hand-tied big hook. This has got a bigger hook. This is like a 6/0 hook, I think, with the big blade. But with this head style, this is a really nice bait, and I love skipping chatterbaits, and this has got a good head design for doing that. I haven't really had a chance to fish these yet. I've only been out a couple of times on tough days, and really was just making casts just to see what it felt like in the water. And I heard somebody describe this thing in a way that almost makes sense. It's like an underwater buzz bait. Man, this thing throws off some vibration. But based on with experience from the bigger bladed jig thing, these should catch some fish. Again, these make a different sound than the original chatterbait, the Stealth Blade, and most any other. I'm going to link in the description below where Bass Fishing HQ has already taken these and run these in front of a camera so you can hear the difference in sound between all of the different chatterbaits. Something I wanted to do, but circumstances just don't allow me to get out to the water. But I wanted to talk about these while I was doing this video because, you know, you probably want to add some of these to your bass fishing arsenal with Black Friday coming up. I only got 3 colors to go with all those big blades. The white razor shads, black and blue razor shads, color that I shouldn't be telling you about called the deal. So those are basically all your specialized chatterbaits other than a regular chatterbait. They each have their different place. One's like a swim jig. The CrosseyeZ is a must-have for bank anglers. Lets you cast and fish from the bank without as much worry about getting hooked up. Again, get something like a Strike King Rage Bug as your trailer so that you have that flat side on the bottom. If you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. I'll do my best to answer anything I can. I'm working to get a bunch of these videos out like I promised you guys I would do, especially with Black Friday sales coming up here soon. As always, get outside when you can and make some memories, one cast at a time.
Can you throw it over there?
Yeah, is that what you want me to do?
Yeah, right there.
All right, here, in your hand.
Okay. Yeah, hold my hand right here.
Oh, they're already biting it. Pull.
Oh,
You got him, reel. You got him, Sky. You got a bluegill. We keep reeling.
Oh,
Yay! You got a bluegill.
Let's do it again.
You got a bluegill.